The wild part is that before we even talk story, Beyond the Spider-Verse already feels like an event just because of how it is hitting theaters. Chris Miller confirmed this one is getting a real IMAX format, not just playing on big screens with the usual widescreen frame. That tells you everything about how confident Sony is. This is the victory lap of the trilogy. The movie they want to feel huge, loud, and cinematic in every possible way. After Across blew up the box office and the internet at the same time, it makes total sense they slowed things down and pushed the release. This is not the kind of finale you rush. Animation at this level takes years, and when it lands, it needs to land hard. I keep thinking about how crazy it is that this whole franchise started as a risky animated experiment, and now it is treated like one of the crown jewels of modern blockbuster cinema. Into the Spider-Verse did not just succeed, it rewrote the rules. It proved animation could be stylish, emotional, messy, loud, and still hit like a live-action epic. Then Across came in and somehow went even bigger, deeper, darker, and ended on one of the boldest cliffhangers ever. Beyond now has the job of bringing all of that home while still trying to break new ground. Instead of building up slowly, this movie feels like it is going to throw us straight into chaos. Miles is stuck in Earth 42, in a city that looks like New York lost its soul. Rain, shadows, neon, crime everywhere. No Spider-Man ever rose there, and you can feel that absence in every corner. And right in the middle of that world stands another Miles, tougher, colder, shaped by survival, wearing the mantle of the Prowler. That is not just a cool twist, that is a mirror held right in front of our hero. Same kid, same heart somewhere deep inside, but completely different path. That opening stretch is going to be pure tension. Two Miles, both convinced they are doing what they have to do. Of course fists will fly, but what really makes it hit is not the fight, it is the idea that Prowler Miles is what our Miles could have become if life had broken just a little bit differently. If his dad had died sooner, if he never met a Spider-Man to show him what heroism looks like, Earth 42 is basically proof that destiny is fragile and that one tiny change can poison an entire world. And here is where Miguel starts to look more and more shaky. His whole belief system is built on fixed canon events. Certain things must happen, or everything collapses. But Earth 42 still exists. Dark, brutal, ruled by the sinister cartel but alive. That alone punches a hole in his logic. Add Gwen Dad quitting the Force and surviving, with no universe meltdown, and suddenly these so-called rules look less like laws of reality and more like guesses made by a man terrified of losing control. Beyond is the movie where that tension finally explodes. Miles is done being told his life is a mistake, done being labeled an anomaly. He became Spider-Man and good came from it. People were saved, worlds were inspired, that matters. So when Miguel insists that Jefferson Davis has to die because fate says so, Miles is never going to accept that. His entire arc has been about choosing who he is, not letting the world choose for him. This final chapter is him taking that idea to its ultimate extreme. All of that is building straight toward the collision with the Spot. And honestly, the Spot might be one of the most genius villain arcs in superhero animation. He started as a joke, a walking gag with holes in his body, and slowly turned into a multiversal god of chaos. Now he jumps through dimensions like it is nothing. He even slipped into the Venom live-action world. That is insane power. You do not punch your way out of that. You outthink it, outplay it, or you find some kind of failsafe baked into the Spider-Verse itself. I would not be surprised if the answer ties back to Collider Tech again, but twisted in a smarter way. Maybe not just one machine, but a network. Or maybe there is something older, something built into the web of realities, a kind of immune system that only wakes up when the multiverse is about to tear itself apart. That feels very Spider-Verse to me. Big idea sci-fi mixed with emotional character choices. And then there is that rumor about the midpoint sequence, the idea of the Spot ripping open dozens of portals at once and dragging in villains from everywhere sounds like the kind of animated insanity only this team would attempt. Imagine Sinister Six variants clashing across different art styles, worlds bleeding into each other, colors and textures colliding mid-fight, maybe even a surprise Venom swinging in, or wild cameos that blend animation with live action again. This franchise already proved it can pull that off without breaking immersion. Visually, Beyond has the chance to be the ultimate flex. Each movie in this trilogy has pushed animation forward, and this one can go even further by letting styles crash into each other inside the same scene. Hand-drawn lines fighting against painterly splashes, glitchy frame rates snapping into smooth motion, entire worlds shifting tone as characters move between them. Add Daniel Pemberton music on top of that, pounding, emotional, heroic, and you have a finale that hits both the eyes and the heart. What really keeps me hooked, though, is the idea of multiple Miles variants. The spider that bit our Miles came from Earth-42. That means in another life, Prowler could have been Spider-Man. That tiny accident reshaped 2 destinies and maybe the whole multiverse. If Beyond shows us more versions of Miles across different realities, some as heroes, some as regular kids, some maybe as something darker, that completely reframes Miguel's argument. It stops being about one mistake and becomes about infinite possibilities. That is pure Spider-Man energy right there. And if that is true, then the story is not about correcting a wrong. It is about accepting that chaos creates heroes too, that sometimes breaking the pattern leads to something better. That fits Miles perfectly. He was never meant to be Spider-Man, and yet he might become the Spider-Man who saves everyone. Of course, the emotional grenade sitting in the middle of all this is Gwen. Her story has always carried that tragic edge. The idea that Spider-Man stories never end happily has followed her from the comics straight into these films. If someone is going to pay a price to rewrite fate, a lot of signs point in her direction. A sacrifice to save Miles, to break the canon, to prove that the rules can change. It would be devastating, and that is exactly why I hope they find another way. Because maybe this trilogy is about finally giving Spider people something they almost never get. A chance to win without losing someone they love, especially when you remember that alternate Gwens are coming. That opens the door to wild ideas. Symbiote Gwen, darker Gwen, heroic Gwen from worlds we have never seen. Throwing one of those into the mix could shake everything up and keep the story unpredictable right until the end. Behind the scenes, the long wait suddenly makes a lot more sense. Animation is brutal. You cannot just reshoot a scene. Every second is built by hand, layer by layer. Storyboards, voice sessions, endless revisions, teams grinding for months to perfect a few minutes of footage. After the crunch stories from across, giving this team more time feels necessary, not just smart. If this movie really is meant to redefine animation again, it needs that space to breathe. And look at where it lands, right in the middle of a massive blockbuster era between giant Marvel events and a new wave of Spider-Man hype. That is risky, but it also shows confidence. Sony knows this trilogy has something special. Not just scale, but heart. Not just spectacle, but soul. For me, Beyond the Spider-Verse is shaping up to be more than a finale. It feels like a statement about animation, about Spider-Man, about choosing your own path when the universe tells you no. It will close this chapter, sure, but I would bet anything it leaves the door cracked open for what comes next. Maybe a live-action Miles, maybe another animated saga, maybe something we cannot even predict yet. All I know is this: when that IMAX screen lights up, when the colors explode, when Miles finally faces the spot and the weight of every choice he has made comes crashing down, it is going to feel earned. Years of waiting, years of hype, all coming together in one last swing through the Spider-Verse. And if they stick the landing, this will not just be the end of a trilogy. It will be remembered as one of the defining animated events of the decade.